Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 170. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge on the comic forums, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim. So, how many episodes did we record over the last couple nights anyway? So says the Sensei of the Whatnot Segulin and the Duke of
How's it going, eh?
That's an actual genuine question at the moment.
Yes, that really is. We don't know.
Yeah. Jim and I actually recorded a lot of content to get ready for his upcoming vacation, and one of the things that we recorded was a discussion on Final Crisis Aftermath Run and the other Final Crisis minis. What happened was we intended on recording one episode tonight, and last night we recorded another episode for Superman for tomorrow. But we got into a great discussion post this recording with Final Crisis Aftermath with Mandy Stegall from the forum and Ian Levinstein from Comic Timing. And Mandy's also the author of Life in the Gutter, our article that's up on the website. It's updated regularly. So we really had a great in-depth discussion, which actually became an episode unto itself. So it's going to be kind of a bonus for you guys because we're releasing this episode tonight. Because I wanted to get a show out tonight, and this is easier for me to edit together, so I had to flip-flop content. I was going to originally release the episode that we recorded with them tomorrow. But I figured, you know what, let me get you guys out a show tonight, and then we're going to be back on Monday with this San Diego Comic-Con episode, which we also talked about the Watchmen Collector's Edition on Blu-ray briefly. We discussed some of the motion comics. We talked about the Smallville panel in San Diego and had a really in-depth discussion at some of the things, some of the news that was coming out of the DCU editorial panel, with a lot of focus on our reactions to it, because I always think, with all the news on the internet and all that, it's more interesting to hear what we all think about that, and we had just had a great discussion about that. That was almost 3 hours in length. It was about two and a half hours, 2 hours and 40 minutes or so. I've got to edit it together, and we'll see. I hope you enjoy all this. Our sponsors for this episode are DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. It's actually, we're at the end of the month. So this is the best time to be getting ready to check out DCBService.com. I bought a couple of hardcovers this month that I was really excited about. That we talked about in one of our episodes, that new Vertigo exclusive hardcover that was coming out that they were offering a deal on. But I also got the Saga of Swamp Thing, Volume 2 by Alan Moore. Did you pick up the first volume of that?
No,
I'm a big Alan Moore fan, and to get those at that 50% off discount for me is it's the only way I can afford to get them. So I jump on those literally when I can grab them at that point. But I'm excited for, and you and I always talk about this time of the month. It's July 30th, 31st, depending on when I get this out to you guys. This is the time of the month where we start getting ready for next month's books to be listed, and I'm always anxious to see what's going to be 50% off, what's going to be 75% off, because they do those crazy deals that I get really excited for, because that's what keeps me in this hobby. So thank you to our sponsor, DCBService.com, and please, if you are not checking them out, do yourself a favor and start checking them out to see what kind of deals you can get on your comics as well. Jim, in 2 episodes, but really a week from today, we are going to be releasing the first part of our discussion on Superman for Tomorrow, chosen by Mandy Stegall, Super Mandy from the forums. Superman 204 to 215, Brian Azzarello, Jim Lee, Scott Williams, the entire 12-issue epic. Superman for Tomorrow. We have the Absolute Edition is available $75 regularly, 47% off, only $39.75. The trade paperbacks, Volume 1 and Volume 2, regularly $14.99, 47% off, only $7.94 from InStockTrades.com. And if you haven't ordered them, literally, if you're listening to this now, double check to make sure, because I'm going to be asking them this in a week to start changing over to Preacher, because that's going to be our next one. I'm already starting to read up for our Preacher feature when we do that one. Preacher feature, that's kind of nice. We're going to be doing the Preacher hardcover, which is the first 12 issues of the book. Another 12-issue segment. We're killing ourselves this summer. But I'm really excited to do Preacher, because this is one, like I said, I actually mentioned later in this episode, that I've already read it once. I'm going back through a second time because I'm enjoying revisiting this book so much, and that hardcover is gorgeous. So that'll be the next one. We are going to have a discount from InStockTrades.com that is not up yet. That will be coming up as of when we do our first For Tomorrow episode. So I'll announce that on the website when that new deal is up. And remember, orders of $50 or more, free shipping from InStockTrades.com, which is really fantastic with those discounts. Jim, what kind of a podcast are we?
Well, Sean, we are a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're reviewing. So if we're going over something you haven't read, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Before we jump into those discussions, Jim, I want to remind everybody of our show voicemail line. We love to have your commentary on our episodes. It's 1-440-388-4434 or drnorge on Skype. That's 440-388-4434. RagingBullets@gmail.com is the one if you're sending me any contest entries or any commentary that you want to get to me for the show. Basically anything, that's show business related that's outside of the actual episodes. But if people want to get you direct.
Well, that would be Sensei of whatnot at gmail.com.
Okay,
once again, that's Sensei of whatnot at gmail.com.
Jim, we got a package here from J.D. Alvarez, and I actually want to make sure before we do anything else that we open that really quick. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, Jim, what do we get?
Holy crud, dude. This is awesome. Thank you, dude. Thank you.
Because it says, thanks for all you do, Sean and Jim. Hope this helps with your collection, Jim. And Sean, you are one sexy SOB. Oh, very nice.
We have the Justice League Unlimited, but it's not just the Justice League Unlimited action figures. It's the collectible with the stand that when you put it all together, they spell out justice.
Oh, nice. So that's your collection that you were looking to fill out.
Yes, now it is filled out. And
it's complete?
Yes, it's now complete.
J.D. Alvarez, you rock.
Dude, you rock. You are awesome.
Oh, I know how badly you wanted to fill out that collection, too. So, Jim, without further ado, let's jump right into our opening segment of the show.
Come on, Skreel. Let's pay these Plutonian beam makers a visit.
I wanted to talk, Jim, about Final Crisis Aftermath Run. We had a funny little story here. We were recording with Freddie E. Williams II, who's a friend of the show and a great guest, and we had this great lengthy discussion with him about Run. We mainly brought him on to talk about issue 3, but through our conversation we started exploring issue 1 and 2 and some of the things that he did in there. Unfortunately, the hard drive that our interview went on completely crashed, and we lost the interview. So that hard drive is no longer a part of my computer, but we're going to attempt to right now just have a discussion about Final Crisis Aftermath Run, and then bring in some of the things that we learned from Freddie on this, because there were some great discussion points from Freddie, some funny discussion points from Freddie on this one. So we're going to kind of casually start with talking about issue 1. I want to, just in general, Run to me has been a very surprising series, because when I heard the Human Flame at first, I was kind of like, really? A miniseries about the Human Flame? I'm like, well, the creative team of Matthew Sturgis and Freddie Williams II, I'm like, okay, I'm on board because of them, but that was what had me excited for the book, not the character. Once I started reading, delving into the insecurities of this character, and really on a personal level, getting to know him, but not only just getting to know him, throughout the story, you're constantly reminded what a sleazeball this guy is. But besides that, there's a great human drama with him. But then when we get to, there's moments where John Stewart, Green Lantern's in there, and Firestorm, and that's the moment where it shocks you back to the reality of what this guy did with Martian Manhunter. And the fact that this guy was taking pictures with his camera phone and was laughing about it, and was so proud of this.
Poking at him, and it was just, it's... When in New York, when they first announced this, I was at that panel, and they're talking about it, and they described him as Fire Weasel, and that's what they were calling him. And I was just like, and that right there had me wondering, okay, what exactly are we going to see from this guy? That opened up the curiosity, and I got to say, this has been my favorite of the Aftermath ones.
I would agree.
Hands down, my top on stack.
Which shocks me because on paper, aside from the creative team, so the creative team always had me sold, but on paper, when I first heard about it, I'm like, I don't know how interested I am in a Human Flame series. This is one of my higher recommendations of my monthly reads right now. This is really good. It's funny. It's twisted. It's got everything that I really enjoy. There's a great sense of humor to it, but it never goes too far. Right. There's a great story that's unfolding with him as well, and when you get to really get into the head of a villain, especially, I think it's better that it is this C-list villain, because you get to see
E-list,
D-list,
E-list,
D-list. That's fine. Okay, so it's a D-list villain. I mean, we're pulling from this guy who is constantly striving to up his game and up his ante. That's what he really wants. He wants respect, but to see him reacting to the different hierarchy of the villains even is real interesting. Human Flame has already been chased by the heroes of the DC Universe at this stage. Not only that, he isn't exactly welcomed with open arms by the villain community. I like that. It's clear fast that he's this man that's all out for himself, very selfish. He will use his wife or ex-wife or even his daughter to save himself. I did chuckle at the whole setup of the typical reunion with the wife and daughter, only to find out that he's a bigger slime ball than most of the DCU villains who wouldn't cross it. Because every so often with villains, you'll get this like moment where you'll see them with a girlfriend or with their wife or husband. You'll see
they have somewhat of a code.
Yeah.
There is some sacred stuff. And this first issue really just showed us time and time again. When he first wakes up in the hospital, he's, the nurses are, hey, come on, okay, you're coming around. First thought he does is he cracks the nurse right in the face, drops her, runs out. As he's running, she probably had it coming. Mm-hmm. This is a nurse who is bringing you back, making you recover from what happened at the end of Final Crisis, and he's like, she has it coming. And you see him just, from that point on, it's what he can get out of it. He joins his one loser buddy in that drug deal that goes horribly wrong. That not only is he getting shot at, his buddy getting shot at, but little kids at a fast food PlayStation set are getting shot at.
And he's one of the most handsome villains in the DC universe. There's a joke behind that. When we were chatting with Freddie, he mentioned that to a certain extent he used himself as a model of sorts for the design of the Human Flame. And I thought it was great because he was talking about how we all have insecurities. And that you can use some of your insecurities when you're creating a character like this and drawing a character like this. And I like that. I love that artists use what they know and use parts of themselves, use parts of people that they know, and all that to flesh out a character. That's not to say that he's a direct duplicate of Freddie. What he was saying, though, he used some of his own quirks in creating this character as a way to... And I like that. I think that's why every creator is a little bit unique in their presentation and in their artwork. It's something different that they bring to the table.
Yeah, and I was glad to see, a fat man get some respect right here. Yeah, he's got his own series going on.
He's awesome. He's awesome. I really appreciated, though, that it was fun to talk with Freddie, how this design of the character came about.
Right. And by fat man, I was referring to the Human Flame, not Freddie. Okay?
Right.
Okay. Yeah. You had that look on your eye like, oh, God, did you just insult Freddie? No.
That was the whole point where I kept saying that he was a handsome man.
Yeah.
Because throughout the discussion, you were throwing out bits like that, and I'm like, he used part of himself in elements of his character. I thought that was really, really funny. I like that this guy will sacrifice friends and I don't like it, but I mean, he'll sacrifice friends and family for personal gain. You talk about his code. That kind of is his lack of code. It really is that he will throw anybody under the bus in order to get what he needs. I complimented Freddie when we were talking to him, not only on his facial expressions, but his body language. Because he goes from this confident slime ball to the shoulder-slumped, meek father figure really quickly, during those segments. Because we see him very confident, but then he does change to meet the kind of con that he's pulling off. And I love that visually when an artist does that. It wasn't just in the face, it was also in the body. And that whole presentation of him felt very real. And the artwork, I thought, shined there, which was really excellent to me. When he tied up his wife, I could almost imagine him twirling his mustache.
Yeah.
One of those bits. It's a very different body language that puts, the earlier model of him. And he even finds, speaking of earlier models, an earlier model of the Human Flame suit in the base, which is really what he was there for. It was really to grab some gear to head off. And this botched up job with the Kyrgyzstani mob that actually put him, which is earlier in it, was particularly interesting to me because he went with his buddy and they were trying to rip off a mob, and his buddy makes the goof up mistake of shooting the guy. So now he's got the whole mob after him as well. So now he's being hunted by the Justice League, the Kyrgyzstani mob,
and
the villains in general, yeah. Or not as and even hunted's a strong word because he is being hunted by obviously a bunch of people, but also he has very few friends in the villain community that he can turn to because of that. So even if they're not hunting him, they're certainly not friendly to him when he comes up because they all remember that he was a part of Libra's group.
Not only did...
Which were plopping helmets on people and controlling them.
But not only that, he was like one of the guys who was like one of the first ones to step up with Libra. It was the fact that Libra got his wish done is what pulled a lot of people in. Because he's like, hey, look what Libra did for this loser. He got him to kill... He killed, Martian Manhunter for this guy. He's going to help me out as well. I'm going to be, I'm a lot, more important than the human flame is, so... he's going to really hook me up. And that was a lot of the pull into people was seeing what he did for this loser who would bring him nothing.
He's like a mad scientist gone wrong because he has some kind of technical know-how with his suit, but it blows up on him mid-fight, and it's clear that this guy, he's kind of, when you say D-list, that's actually pretty accurate because of the fact that where he's at right now in the start of this series, it just seems like there's not really much of anything that's going for him that's strong.
Right.
I haven't found like a really strong skill of his yet, aside from turning on everybody.
Well, turning on everybody. And you know what? I got to give him credit because he is pretty good at improvising just on the fly. There's a lot of people who would just say, forget it, and just sit down and say, I'm done. He honestly, in his mind, thinks that he can get out of it. And he thinks, he's got, in a way, he's kind of got a positive attitude that he always thinks he's going to come out okay in the end, even though he's not. He's a scum. He's slime. But he still thinks in his head, hey, I can make this happen. When his buddy first gets killed, he snatches the money up. Oh, well, too bad for him. And then moves on. Then when he gets to the wife, he takes advantage of the wife, steals the car, and steals his little daughter's bike. And he's sitting there driving her. Yeah, things are ticking up for me. Yeah, this is going to work for me. And then it's right at those moments in his life when he says, yeah, this is really going to work for me, is when the
And I didn't even catch it on my first couple read-throughs that he actually specifically put that bike on there for the purpose of taking it, which was something that Freddie pointed out as we were chatting with him. That was really funny to see him. I mean, that tells you're lower than low. This is his daughter, and he took her bike.
Because it was funny. We both thought that it was already on the car or something like that, and he just didn't. He was just too lazy to take it off. Right. No, he actually took the time to put it on.
And I thought it was bad enough that he was driving away. You would have thought like a dad, because my original thought was that the bike was already on the car and he was driving away, and I thought that was scummy enough that you would think that there was at least some part of him that had some sense of honor, that he would at least say, I'm not going to take my little girl's bike. I'm a terrible father or anything like that. I'll at least leave that for her. No, it goes even one step further. Not only was it wasn't that he was too lazy to take it off, was that he put it on there for the purpose of selling it. Or
he'll get a couple bucks for it. Hit a pawn shop, sell it, done.
What a scumbag.
Oh, yeah. This is just, and it's funny because he reminds me, it's that same type of twisted, scummy type of evil bad guy stories that we get out of like Secret Six. With some of that stuff where we shouldn't be laughing at it, we shouldn't find it funny, but we still do, and it has that same type of style. And it's not just about because it's two villain teams. There is a comic edge. There is that comic edge to it. In this where it's the darker humor. There's this in that first scene, as we said, when he was ripping off his wife, and just the one scene you see him all, yeah, baby, it's going to be okay, everything's going to be. Next thing you see her tied up, jerk, and I was just like, I shouldn't be laughing at this, but it's funny.
At the San Diego Comic-Con, and I'll talk about this a little later in the show, they did announce that JSA All-Stars, the upcoming second JSA book, there's going to be 2 JSA books now. The team is going to be split in 2. It's going to be one big JSA. It's not like it's going to be quite as simple as that, but there's going to be 2 defined teams that are going to have 2 different purposes.
Cool.
And so there's an actual, and you would think with the size of the team that Jeff Johns crafted, this makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's, teams, more so, it sounds like 2 squads of the big team that are going to be working together, and I like that they're going to separate them. There's going to be leaders on both teams and very defined books. But Matthew Sturgis is going to be, along with Freddie E. Williams II, are going to be doing this new JSA All-Stars. Bill Willingham's going to stay as the writer on the other JSA book. And with how well that they work together, it's very similar to what they did with Fables and Jack of Fables. And I thought that did nothing but improve the Fables universe. I'm really excited that they're doing this to really do some focused stories. And I'll talk a little bit more about this when we talk a little bit about the San Diego news a little later in the show. But this team, I like that Freddie, when he was talking about the scripts, he talked about when he gets Matthew Sturgis' scripts, because the humor in this is really good. And it is something that I've liked, speaking of Fables and Jack of Fables. Jack of Fables especially has a lot of humor. He talked about how funny it is to read the scripts, because he said there's a lot of humor in the script itself in the way that things are presented. He said he's actually a funny guy. He really enjoys working with him, really enjoys his script writing, and it's really just an enjoyable experience to work together on this book. So I was really happy to see such an interesting partnership between these two and how that's working out. So I'm excited to see more from this creative team. I'm glad that they're going to be continuing on into a series. Issue 2, speaking of humor, the cute little guard doggy bit was really funny to me because of the artwork. I did like that the initial panel was truly the calm before the storm, because you see these like cute little dogs, you walk and go, oh, I want one, and I have to commend both of them on their sense of timing that matched the great dialogue. These tiny little buggers looked menacing even when they were thrown out the window, and I did like that the dogs weren't killed.
That was a cool thing that they put it in there just to make sure you would see that, they didn't go splat.
But he didn't know when he was tossing the dogs out the window. And I like that Freddie was emphasizing that point. He had no clue that the dogs were going to wind up okay. As far as he knew, there was because he was in the Kyrgyzstani guy's apartment looking for the pack, trying to get some supplies and hopefully money to be able to sustain himself until he could get the equipment he needed to be able to commit crimes and do all that stuff.
It was actually a kind of a neat thing, because how he said before how Flame may be a weasel and a DEF lister villain, but he has been in the game for a while. He has been around, and it was neat to see that he knew that these Kyrgyzstani mob guys would have some safe house somewhere. And he knew probably would be in the safe house. Maybe some weapons, maybe some cash, definitely change of clothes, maybe someplace he can keep moving, get what he needs from there. And I liked seeing that. But it was funny because we're talking about how Freddie definitely emphasized that he didn't know there was a pool. Heck, even if these had been sweet, innocent little dogs, he would have picked them up, oh, cute little puppy, and drop them. It's just, no regard whatsoever for other people's property, other people's little doggies, you name it. This guy is the fire weasel. He is just, it's such a perfect description of this guy that, he is just, and you want to hate him. You want to hurt him. I want to reach in the paper and just start smacking him around. But it's that on the other hand, I'm laughing my head off at some of this stuff because it's, I shouldn't be laughing, but I am.
But he's a guy that I think everybody in their life has either known somebody like this or known somebody who's been unfortunately burned by somebody like this, where you give the guy so many chances and they just keep letting you down. And he's one of those people where, he's a con man, cares only for himself, and you've got to get this guy out of your life when you have them, guy or girl, whoever it is. That was kind of the interesting thing. It felt very real to me. It never went so over the top that I didn't feel that there was a certain amount of reality to the whole thing.
Yeah. When we're saying we're laughing, it wasn't like the slapstick, goofy.
No, that's what I liked about it.
It's a nice blend because it's
balance.
It's a nice balance to it. Yeah.
Well, also dealing with the fact that this guy has his own insecurities and wants to be viewed as a top-tiered guy. I do like that it deals with heavy topics of revenge and justice. Jon Stewart and Firestorm, as I mentioned before, are hunting him down because they want to bring him to justice, especially Jon Stewart, because of his deep connection with the Martian Manhunter, really is taking this personally. But think about this. In a world of heroes, not only the personal connection, but if someone kills one of your own, it brings your own mortality into mind. And that is something that is going to weigh heavy on you and add to the anger that's already there. So, like I said, while this book has great humor, there's that balance there that I appreciated. Human Flame versus Heatwave. I am a Flash Rogues nut, and this made sense. I think what worked for me was not only that it did make sense to try and buy some better tech from Heatwave, seeing that his own expertise literally blew up on his back, but the sense of desperation that he will take what he needs. Being called a nobody sets him off visually, as well as through the dialogue. And this is what drove him in helping to kill Martian Manhunter. And it also drives him here. The need to be taken seriously.
It's his own insecurities that are once again surfacing. Mm-hmm. It's he knows in his mind that that he is a loser, but you never want to admit that. So he's got that little. He always had it. A lot of times people call it little man syndrome, where you got to have the big attitude, puff out your chest, make yourself, oh, look at me, I'm a tough guy. He keeps trying to do that, and he's doing this up against like a legitimate villain like Heatwave, and Heatwave just knocks him down. So he has no intelligent argument. He has no way he could debate him. So he's like. So he lashes out. It's really a textbook type of bully type mentality. He really is a bully without the muscle to back it. So he's got to find weaker people to pick on. And right now he's not going up against a weaker person. But once again, he still doesn't quit, which is. As much as I hate to say it, is admirable quality that he can keep getting knocked down and lose and do a bit, but he keeps coming back and he keeps chugging through. I was oddly impressed by him.
Mike's increasing battle damage throughout the first 2 issues really worked for me. Neck brace, bandages, etc. Sure, he's been around for years, but we all know he doesn't usually play with the big boys. I do like this exploration of it being, more than the, because we always talk about that, is it the costume or is it the man? In this case, it is the man. The man's the problem, and I like that. Do you think, Jim, that he will ever have the confidence to become a big player? We do see in this story that he gets, rebuilt and restructured. But do you think that what are your predictions? By the end of the series, do you see him being one of the big boys? Or
in the end, his worst enemy is himself, and he'll always bring himself down. That's why he is a true and massive loser. He's not going to be able to.
See, it's interesting. A part of me thinks that the journey he is going through here, I agree with you to a certain extent, but I think we are going to see his game upped a little bit more through this mini.
Yeah.
And we might see him as more of a player in the DC universe.
I think when it ends, he'll still be the flame weasel, the fire weasel.
But do you think we'll see him more in the DC universe now?
Maybe. He may be like a.
I want to see more.
Oh yeah, he's a fun character. He's an interesting guy. I like to see the little weasel get smacked around. But
we are at this stage only halfway through, so we've got a lot of story to go yet. So the speculation we're doing at this point, I think there's a lot of character development for Mike to yet go through. But my speculation, at least with the way things are heading right now, is we're going to see more from Mike, I think. I don't know.
Well, I do have the thing that I would kind of like to see happen. It's weird because part of me says I'd like to see this, part of me doesn't, because I do like the little weasel being around.
I do too.
I think he
he's a good villain.
Stories.
I don't want to see him all of a sudden become this super confident guy that I don't mean it that way. I think we're going to see him step up. I think we might see him go from D to C, but yet be somebody who could be more of a threat.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Well, part of me would like to see him. At the end of this whole series, he's sitting there, he's exhausted. Like, wow, I beat them all. I'm alive, and he's kind of like patting himself on the back. Hey, I'm alive. All right. And all of a sudden, just out of nowhere, you see the Blackest Night Martian Manhunter just appear after him, and and it ends with a ah.
Yeah, and see,
it's the tool. Part of me wants to see that so bad. Part of me's like, I don't want to lose Mike. He's pathetic. He's awesome. But on the other hand, I think that would be just such perfect poetic justice.
I think what we're seeing in Blackest Night, though, shows that that's not the motivation.
Oh no,
of the Black Lanterns.
But tell me that wouldn't be a cool sequence. I think that would be a cool scene just to have because
I don't want to. You know what? I've got to be honest with you. Before I read this book, I would have said yes. 3 issues into this, I don't want to see that. I'm not saying you're wrong for feeling that. We're just in a different place on this one.
No.
I'm enjoying following him enough. I'm not saying that he's necessarily a likable guy, but I do think he's the type of villain that could appear in another book after this. And like I said, there's more story development to go with him and could be very interesting to follow. I want to see where he goes. So a lot of my kind of, and I know I sound non-committal on that at the moment, and it really is because a lot of what is going to drive that decision is what happens in issues 4, 5, and 6 of this series. So, but right now I'm in a different place. I would have been 100% in agreement with you before reading this.
And I'm not saying and as I say, it's not 100% because I do like the little weasel and I do want to see him around, but it just, I don't know, part of me, that sick sense of humor that I have, it would just be one of those ultimate poetic justices. Right at the end, he thinks everything's good because that's his MO. When he thinks he's okay, when he thinks he's doing good, that's when the bottom drops out on him. Every single issue so far, it's always happened that way. Even in Final Crisis, it happened that way. Mm-hmm. He's like, yeah, I'm Libra's right-hand man. All right. Oh, what's this helmet? Oh, crud.
Right.
And it was the exact same deal that happened there is happening. We're still seeing that, bad luck of this guy.
So let me ask you a question. Okay, let's go into the theory that he is going to live at the end of this. All right. I agree. Every option's on the table. Sure, he could die at the end, but... let's say he lives at the end. Where do you see him going from here? Do you see him teaming up with other villains? Do you see him being on his own? What do you see him doing?
Unless we see a major evolution of the character, he ain't teaming up with anybody. He's not a partner.
Evolution's a big deal.
Because we saw him. We'll see him in the end of this issue, and then in 3 start to get with a team, and we saw how well he reacted with a team.
But how do you think he would react with villains that he respects if they gave him respect in return?
If someone like Luthor,
because like Heatwave, honestly, the Heatwave situation could have gone a whole lot differently if Heatwave respected him. Obviously, he looks up to this guy. He was set off by the fact that this guy was another higher-tiered villain that was spitting on him, basically.
Yeah.
And that's what set him off. What if Heatwave had treated him with respect?
In the end, he would have double-crossed Heatwave.
You think?
Oh God, yeah.
If there was a positive, yeah.
If he could get away with it and get the money and get away, and it would.
That's true
would
of
double cross him.
That's true of a lot of villains, though.
Yeah,
that is a true villain.
Big time true. Of
a lot of those partnerships are. So, could you see Mike being in partnerships of convenience and having them be successful partnerships, not like the Rogues?
No, I don't. I think what it is it's going to come down to the fact that every single time he partners with somebody, he double crosses them.
Yeah.
So the first time he does it, okay.
Unless in issues 4, 5, and 6, we see some major
unless we see some changing in him, like maturity, or just a general acceptance, because he is living kind of in a dream world that he is tougher than what he is.
Yeah.
He needs to accept that. Okay, you got to accept.
And he's higher up on the food chain than what he is.
Once he starts accepting his limitations and dealing with them, and use your own weaknesses as a strength, then we could see him rise up maybe to a C list.
Let's talk about Condiment King. Who has those salt and pepper shakers on his head. I had to ask Freddie that because I'm like, that looks like salt and pepper shakers. Now I did some research on those characters, and Freddie verified this as well. Condiment King, characters like Professor Milo, and a lot of the others appeared in Batman and in the DC Universe titles. They also many of them appeared in Batman the Animated Series. So they were characters. I'm like, because I thought I remembered them. So I looked on the net, and then Freddie verified that a lot of those characters were brought in. Immortus just makes sense to me. These misfit villains would be easy and loyal prey if you're trying to work up power in an underground kind of way. I get the impression that this guy works under the radar of the big villains. I don't see Immortus trying to take power or to double cross people like Lex Luthor or the Flash Rogues. He's very happy with his own little niche. Yeah. These are he's doing things that they wouldn't bother with. He's operating in places that they wouldn't sink themselves to, and it's an opportunity to become quite powerful doing tiny little things.
It's the squeaky wheel gets the oil and all that. So you have these big villains doing these big bold plans. You have this little guy
under the radar.
You're not going to mess with him. It's going to be look at that. It's
they don't have time.
Acceptable.
The heroes don't.
Yeah, it's an acceptable loss. It's a minimal risk. They're not. He's not going around killing people. He's just doing little jobs here, little jobs there. People will get hurt sometimes in the end, but he's not the psychopathic killer. He's not the big time gonna ruin Wall Street or take over the world type guy. So you just let him slide. And if they come across him and they catch him, then they'll catch him, throw him in jail because he's not a big threat and he's not that difficult to stop. But they're not going to put the resources into it. And I like seeing that type of villain team. We've joked around a couple times on the show about why don't villains go to like a city like Cleveland where there are no superheroes? Mm-hmm. A small town where like Intergang. If Intergang were to come to Cleveland, my God, they would run the town. And the town wouldn't care. Like, oh, hey, this is a major industry coming in here. Look at all this revenue they're bringing in. Look at all this taxes they're bringing in. Oh, okay, they're dealing illegal arms. Well, we'll just look the other way. And you can find towns that would do that very easily. But instead, they got to go through Gotham and Metropolis. Why? The big guys are there. Go to these smaller towns. That's what this guy is. He's a small town supervillain that doesn't have to worry.
And there are ego and quirks that drive these villains that keep going to those bigger towns. Their desire to win, their own psychoses and things. Now, Jim, how far would you go to better yourself? Because, I mean, if we talk about an issue 2 during the scene where Human Flame is being reconstructed or quote-unquote bettered. We see Mike's whole body opened up and exposed. Could you imagine waking up to that?
Yeah, that would be a no. I think I'll pass on that. But it is... I liked how when Freddie was telling us when they were drawing this and their coloring this, they were having some issues with how much of guts and all that were
originally was drawn a lot gorier.
Yeah.
And Freddie mentioned that Rex Ogle, O-G-L-E, and Ian Sattler, various times during the chat, gave him some guidance and said that it had to be toned. Like, at first they were like, that's great and all that, but then it had to be toned down because of...
editors and all that said, hey guys, we can't push it too far on this.
Right. It is interesting to see, and he mentioned their names multiple times throughout our interview as offering guidance and support, and, because a lot of times for us as readers, it's trying to find out what is that relationship like, and I'm sure it's different on every title and every book, depending on who your editors are, and are they more hands-on, more hands-off? Yeah. Same thing with the writers and the artists, that type of relationship. Freddie mentioned Matthew Sturgis a lot of times, and it sounds like those two have, a community.
They have a good, solid team, and
I'm sure it's different again from different creative teams, depending on how much they talk and all that. So it was interesting to hear what this relationship was like, how everyone seemed to be really in contact. At least frequently enough. I'm not saying they talked every single day, but semi-regularly at least.
This was a team effort. You can tell that between creative and editorial, and even when like he was talking about this page, when is it too much? Is it not enough? They were all backing. The creative staff was all backing each other. I think it was like the higher ups that said, "Hey, tone that down." There's a couple other stuff that when they first presented it said, "Yeah, that's great. Let's do that." And like, we need to back it off a little bit. And it was. But the whole time, it was like a very positive thing. It was like a really cool, working together as one team and not, throwing things off. So I thought
it was interesting because it was
positive.
Show.
It was such a positive, light to this that I like seeing and hearing about the fact that this is a team concept. This is a team dynamic, and that was a really cool insight. Yeah,
it's a DCU book, so because of that, there's obviously. Not even just an age range, but a certain presentation as far as, Vertigo titles are considered mature reader titles, whereas DCU books are a little more accessible. So because of that, they have certain limits. And it was interesting to hear that, we went for this and we were going for the jugular, which makes sense. And then, so it is interesting, and I'm sure it's probably different from book to book and from sequence to sequence. And whose desk it comes across and when on what you wind up getting away with and what you don't, too. It was interesting. I really enjoyed that chat about that. So after Mike goes through this whole process, Enemy, one of the misfits, is killed by Mike at the end as an example. Immortus wants him to kill this guy as an example. Immortus using him not only to scare by murdering, but reminding the others of the sheer amount of power and control he has over their enhancements, because they're each outfitted with this pain switch.
Yeah.
That keeps them under his thumb. when he's writhing on the floor, the reactions of those watching really worked for me because it wasn't so much. I shouldn't say it wasn't so much. There was an obviously intense pain from Mike and discomfort, but those watching, each person had their own personal reaction to what was going on. Nobody was cookie cutter.
Yeah, like I love that Condiment King, who throughout this has been, I'm so glad to meet you. And
there's no joking now.
Yeah, it's very straightforward. You see him even turning away, and his one hand's up, covering his eyes so he doesn't see. And I was just like, that fits that guy. He's if Human Flame's a D-list, that dude's like a Z-list. That's how farther down the line.
I actually put that in my notes too. That I thought he was a Z-list character. Right.
So it's you see that.
At least you know what. In fairness, I think with the state that they're at right now, with the status that they're at and what's been done to them by Immortus, it could be argued that these guys are all on the same level. But Mike views him as a Z-list, because Condiment King, probably prior to what Immortus did to him, was a Z-lister.
Well, I don't know if Immortus did anything to Condiment King, because you look at his costume,
I think that whole crew.
He's got patches on his uniform, he doesn't have a clean suit or anything like that.
But I think that whole crew's been altered in some way. That whole crew is Immortus'
what did they do to him? What did they do? What did they give him?
Because remember when, especially as we go in, we'll talk about issue 3 more. When the whole squad goes in, I think each one of those people have in some ways been modified because he held his own.
Well, he was just shooting salsa and various hot
but he
sauces.
Was still effective with it.
Yeah. So maybe his enhancement was
just like Human Flames,
get a better head. He got maybe a better grade of spray, but I don't think his body was enhanced.
It didn't change his MO any, but it enhanced his MO. Very similar to what they did with Mike.
Yeah, but I don't think they enhanced his body.
Well,
though.
But what did we see that would indicate that they didn't? They did? We don't know.
The whole thing I'm basing the fact on is that they did not enhance his body, because you see his costume is...
That's his costume, not his body.
You look at Mike got a better costume. The what's his polka dot got a better one. The
what
sportsman
costume did Mike really get though?
His new body is
that's
the better
his body,
costume.
Not a costume.
But that's the same deal. That's what I'm saying.
No, it's not. His body was physically enhanced that way.
Why didn't they enhance Condiment King so that he doesn't have to use his condiment spray?
Because his costume's part of his MO.
Well, the Human Flame, that was part of his MO. They put that into his body.
I know, but condiments you would have condiment containers.
But why not make
why would you be Condiment King and you would have the spray in your fingers?
Yeah.
Like ketchup spraying fingers?
How do you... firing out his palm or his...
but that defeats visually the whole purpose of it from a visual end.
Yeah.
Why would you do that?
Why?
As a creative team, why would you do that? That takes the whole thing. You're going to make everybody the same?
No,
because then you've taken that whole group. You're trying to take what happened to Human Flame and put Condiment King in that same category. What is the point of Immortus' example if they weren't all altered in that same way to have that same pain issue happen to them? You're telling me they don't all have that in that whole...
Well, they probably have the pain chip in him.
But when do you think they had that happen? When he in some way enhanced them? He enhanced all of them. The whole group was enhanced because that's how he got the control of them. That's how it happened to Mike.
Well... that's how it happened to Mike. But
so what? They knocked out Condiment King and put the chip in his head?
Or to be honest, he may not even have one. Think about it. Condiment King's is desperate for a team. He's desperate for a team. They have him already on just because he's got nothing.
But take a look at the look on his face.
Yeah,
he knows what that's like. He knows what that's like, Jim. It's clear he knows what that's like. Every one of them in that room knows what that's like. I completely disagree with you on this. Every one of those people in that picture knows what that's like. Take a look at their expressions. It's clear they've all been through that in some way. He taught all of them that lesson.
Okay.
What Mike's going through the initiation, they've all been through. The only one that has a slightly different expression is the girl on his side, and the only reason why she feels that way is because she's his girl.
Yeah.
But she's got that in there too. I'm convinced that everybody has that. That's this Immortus' whole MO.
It honestly probably does have the chip in it. I just don't know what alteration I don't know if they did a physical alteration.
But this is the story of the Human Flame. Right. They didn't go through and do who else besides the Human Flame and the girl only because of their interactions. She's the only one we know, but that to me was convincing enough that because hers, she doesn't have stuff spurting out of her.
No, she didn't need it.
Exactly. So why does that mean that? Why did Condiment King then?
Because that's his whole weaponry. It's a spray.
Right. So he, in some way, has been enhanced. And you're right. Maybe it was his weaponry, but I would believe that each one of them, in some way, has been surgically enhanced. Maybe his aim's better.
I don't know.
What I'm saying is, maybe his aim's better. Maybe his agility's a little better. You see him bouncing around a lot in issue 3, for example. We don't know because that story isn't told here. But I think it would be silly to assume anything other than the fact that all of them in some way went through some surgical procedure to be quote unquote enhanced. Because that's Milo's whole MMO too, Professor Milo.
Right. He's
there to kind of mess around and dicker around with everybody. I guarantee you what happened to Mike happened to all of them. In some capacity. I'm not saying that he's set up like Mike. Don't get me wrong. Actually, I think that wouldn't fit Milo at all. Mike was kind of his way, what can I do with this guy?
Yeah, everyone's a little different. It's his own.
So what can I do with Condiment King to make him more, up his game? And I think we just didn't see enough of those. And maybe we will see more as the issues go on. I don't know, though, because it really is Mike's story.
Yeah.
The funny part is I'm interested enough.
You want to know.
I would love a one-shot to kind of follow some of these characters. Anyway, at the ends of each series, there's this great blurbs. And at the end of issue 2, there's this great blurb about dissatisfaction setting in, which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
The guy's writhing on the floor. I think you're a little bit more than dissatisfied at this point. But it's, again, that tongue-in-cheek humor of Matthew Sturgis that really works. It's very prevalent in Jack of Fables at the end of those issues. And it was great to see that here in a different form, how that works out as well. Issue 3... Freddie's an incredible guy to talk to, and I want to encourage everybody to visit FreddieArt.com. He's going to be coming to the Chicago Comic-Con that's going to be put on by Wizard. He was just at the San Diego Comic-Con, so he's definitely somebody that you want to check out. He has a book coming out that actually I want to talk about at the end of this discussion, because he's got his own book on digital drawing that's going to be coming out that's going to be really interesting, that is available from multiple booksellers at this point for pre-orders, coming out in September. But we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Seductress. The anatomically astonishing vixen.
Yeah.
We were chatting with Freddie. He told us that in his original design for her, he wanted to go over the top with... but to mimic how like people in society, especially today, are going too far with the surgeries. It was an interesting discussion point because he hopes the satire is still there, and I think it is with her. For example, he wanted veins to show like on her boobs initially.
Yeah, and look like a bad, maybe like a bad face job.
Yeah,
thing,
like she went too far.
Right.
But ultimately, he had to pull back a bit because it is a DCU book, and that was actually it was interesting because, like when Mike was opened up, It's much like the sacrifices you have to make for film to receive a certain rating. You had to make certain sacrifices with what he wanted to do in his artwork with this in order for it to fit the rating that they want this book to have when it's on the shelf. So it was interesting that he had to kind of pull back a little bit for that, and he wanted to go for more exaggeration. But it did fit that she fits kind of what a girl would go for according to today's quote-unquote society.
Yeah, what's the current measure of beauty? Well, you need the big fake plastic. Mm-hmm.
She looks Baywatch.
Yeah,
she looks like a Baywatch. You know, the typical Baywatch babe look is what she looks like, and she was altered to look that way. So that fit for me. Mike's inner dialogue about killing a mortis to get a crack at Seductress reminds us that no matter what someone does for him, although you could easily argue that the pain and control that a mortis is using does not inspire loyalty from anyone, no matter what someone does for him, Mike is all about Mike. That opening double page of the team diving into battle, it looks very much like a well-oiled machine. And I like this because this looks like a very polished fill-in group. And the art contrasts the internal dialogue, though, because Mike's letting us know that he would sell any one of them out for $20 and a pack of Chocos. And I really like those choices because the contrast of the art and the inner dialogue, because if you just looked at that, you took out all the dialogue and looked at that, you'd be like, Mike's finally found his team. Right?
Yeah, he looks like right. This is an impressive swoop down. Yeah, you got Mike firing the flame. You got Condiment King. Yo, wasabi.
I could see this group going up against a solo superhero and being like Spider-Man has his his six, I'm drawing a blank on the name.
Sinister Six.
Sinister Six. Thank you very, very much. He has a Sinister Six, which, when they band together, they really put him through the ringer. And in this case, I could see this being another Heroes Sinister group, where they were, this group teaming together. He'd almost need to call in other heroes to handle them.
He'd need to call for backup?
Right, yeah. Oh, God. Yeah. We got to give you some new lines.
I know. Yeah.
Call for backup, but I agree with you on this one. They really would need to call for backup in this particular sequence because this team looks like that until you get to Mike's dialogue, and that's where I thought that kind of partnership worked really well. It was an interesting choice. Condiment King is a trip, but I could so see him being the first one in the group that everyone wants to beat up. You think that was hot? Well, this one salsa's a bit spicy. Or, that was a saucy idea placing the roadblock to stop the convoy. I mean, every moment with him, his mouth opens, insert foot, or groan.
Insert groan. Not insert foot, insert groan. It's just...
Well, I would insert the foot, I would insert a sock, I would insert a brick.
Insert fist to shut him up.
Exactly what I mean. It just shut this guy up. And I liked that, but the roadblock turns out to be Clayface. And I was really excited at this point. We're in 3 issues in. We've seen some heroes show up on the scene. But to finally get besides Heatwave, now we've got another top-tier villain.
This is a definite A-list, A-stringer. This is your big guns. And this was a cool, he shows up, and it's, once again, every man for themselves. Well, the team versus Clayface versus the thing. It was a triple threat match. I liked that.
The second he saw Human Flame, I liked that. We see how he's viewed by the villain community. They would have major issues with him. They link him as a lackey to Libra, and that was something that he immediately saw him and focused on Mike.
Yeah.
Now, I have no doubt Mike would change his tune if Libra had succeeded. Instead of denying it, he would say, I knew Lieber was going to do this all along. But I liked how Mike was trying to deny things, and this wasn't me, and all that stuff. But he would have done it the other route and said, I even gave the guy the idea if it had been a positive thing.
Right.
Mike was totally tap dancing in that sequence and doing anything he could to get him out of it. He had no conviction behind what he was saying. He was denying Libra because of the fact that it suited that particular purpose. Yeah. I liked that I felt that way instantly with him. I feel like I know this guy 3 issues in, and I know how he'd react to a situation.
And one of the interesting things we did get from Freddie on this was in the scripting. Mm-hmm. They talk about how Human Flame is hitting him with everything he got, and there's no effect whatsoever on Clayface. This was a thing where Mike was hitting. Mike's like, you want to go? Okay, fine. I got the firepower now. And he's hitting him with everything he had, and it was no effect whatsoever on Clayface. So, if this fight had gone any longer, if the JLA hadn't shown up, if John Stewart and Firestorm hadn't shown up, it would have been the end of our Human Flame. So that was, I like seeing that, just even though thinks he's got the power, when he's up against somebody with some real muscle, it does nothing.
Lava Fist, go! I was laughing because it's clear these powers are new. And like the Human Torch, you need those words to focus your thoughts versus them actually doing anything. Like, I didn't take it that Lava Fist Go actually was a trigger, other than it's a psychological trigger.
Yeah.
Which I thought was interesting. They escaped due to a distraction from the arriving heroes, leaving Clayface to be captured. But going back to that real quick, the formula that Jessie Quick uses and her dad Johnny Quick uses, it was Johnny Quick towards the end of his tenure in the Flash books realized that he didn't need the formula. He could work past it. And it was kind of cool to see Johnny Quick work past that towards the end, that the formula was always just a focus, that he actually had a connection to the Speed Force.
And I take it she uses it now more as in honoring her father.
No, it's a trigger. It's still a trigger for her. She never overcame that. I don't know. In recent JSA issues, it I could be wrong, but it just seemed to me more like it was an honoring her father. When she first used the formula, I think it was, if you remember, at JSA, to me it seemed like she was doing it to honor the father, because they were telling that great story about her background and how she was Liberty Bell and she was following him. Then she's like, no, I am both. And that's when she first used she was
the
Jessie
formula
Quick first.
Right.
And then
she
became
turned her
Liberty
back
Bell.
on Jesse Quick and became Liberty Bell.
See, and I guess I took it that she's using the formula now because she focuses so much on being Liberty Bell that she needs the formula to kind of kickstart her speed powers. I don't know.
Just how
I can see it
read
being either way.
That's how I read
Yeah.
it, and maybe I'm wrong. Huh?
Because, there's nothing that's explained about it either way,
Yeah.
so... I wondered how much more powerful Mike was than before, because Freddie mentioned that he never thought Mike would actually stand a chance against Clayface, and I totally agree. Clayface has been around too long and understands his powers too well, but it'd been interesting to see how long Mike could have held out against Clayface versus his old suits, because he clearly was able to be more of a, not even a threat's not too strong of a word, but definitely was able to hold his own a lot longer than he would have been squashed like a fly with his old suit.
It was a more respectable battle. He actually
No chance, but
there was no way there was going to be any difference in the outcome. But at least he went down looking good. It wasn't just a pathetic flame once, he blocks it, bam, crushes his tank on his back, and he explodes. No, he's hitting multiple.
His game
things
has been upped.
Yeah.
When the crew returns to their base, Mike continues to sit away from them. Mike needs to feel superior to them, and I loved that visually. Seeing him, the way he carried himself when he was sitting there. He's second fiddle forever and needs to feel like that status has been changed. That's something that he needs to feel that like he's up a little higher than them. That's why he won't join them at the table. This crew, though, I still feel, and I don't know if you agree with me on this, that crew really is on an equal level with him with their enhancements.
Yeah, they're all they're all at the same level.
Because when you saw the team kind of march in together, I really felt that was a squad of equals.
Oh, definitely. And they each had their own individual role, and it was good that Mike was going out. Mike was going out fun, firing the wide berth of flame, and that's a good usage of his character.
Yeah. High school, how there's that one guy that won't sit with a group of people or something like that because he's got to feel a little bit of power.
He's too cool for the room.
But everybody knows that he's really just a dork.
Yeah.
He's trying to make himself seem like he's on that level. I like that. Mike's insecurity coming into play. We've all seen that. Polka Dot saying that he fought Batman, and the funny bit that he lost because Robin tracked him down with a leopard. A leopard!
Who uses a leopard?
Yeah,
come on!
Reminders that they were easily taken down in that simpler time, because these are all characters that are representative of a simpler time in comics, whose game's being upped by a mortist. Freddie told us an interesting story from the script that never made it into the book. Wayne Banks' managers didn't take any bonuses, which is why it was still able to operate the way it was. Even though it didn't make it in the book, I really appreciated when the writers are looking for a way to put social commentary into comics. I just thought it was interesting. And Freddie said,
they couldn't get it
in a way that would make sense with the story. Yeah. But I thought it was cool that they were looking at ways to try and bring that stuff in, because it's very today, very contemporary. Seductress is the girlfriend of Immortus, obviously using her charms probably to avoid the pain the others go through. She's also an opportunist. She flirts with Mike and seems to be feeling him out. I don't think she's like this brain surgeon or anything like that. She's got this real high devious plan.
No.
But I think she wanted to be enhanced in this way, to use those feminine charms as a way to be more quote-unquote valuable.
Yeah.
Whichever way the wind blows.
She's got She's got some street smarts, and she's got some street sense to know what are her strengths. Yeah. And she's using her strengths. She doesn't have a bold, broad plan that's like, I do this, and I can play him like a puppet master. Boo, ha, 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 ha. Mm-hmm. She's not like that, but she is always looking for the BBD, the bigger, better deal. So Mike's coming along, it's like, hey, maybe...
Or not even so much the bigger, better deal, it's what will keep me in the position I'm currently accustomed to. Because I don't get the impression... I get the impression she's really happy with how she's been enhanced. She's happy with how she is right, with her kind of status as it is. But when she hears that Mike's, or she gets this idea that Mike's planning to overthrow things, it's clear that she's going to play along, because if it actually works,
she'll be in good position. Right.
But when it doesn't, she's also going to be. And I like that about her, because I agreed with Freddie. Freddie was real big on the fact that I don't think she's got, the brain cells going enough. That and I agree with him on that one. She doesn't seem to be. It kind of fits how she wanted herself enhanced anyway. It's an interesting character because her pheromones allow her to gain a mental control of sorts over the men that she attracts. But she clearly needs a team to be effective on any level, because I don't see her working...
Yeah, she's,
almost like the whole group that Mike's with. It's kind of funny.
Everybody needs
I do think Mike found the perfect group for him, because together, for that short period there, they looked pretty impressive to me.
They were doing a good job, and like when they rob from Wayne Bank, the police are coming. These two worked together nicely to get away, and it was they actually got away with the robbery. They got away
kind of
with
Royal
it.
Flush gang thing going on, where they could have been like this quirky labeled gang, but together they somehow... Like, I honestly think we talk about Mike being on lower end. That's the kind of group that if he could get over his own issues
and start working with them, they could actually, rise up and be
semi-impressive.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It was kind of funny. The action of them escaping and fighting the police is vintage Freddie, and something I truly enjoyed on both his Robin and Flash runs. It's gorgeous action sequences. He's really talented at those.
Just little stuff, like in the background with when they're crashing through and knocking over to tin cans, you see the garbage flying out as she smashes out the window to start firing out. You see the shards of glass going back. It's the little details to the background stuff that it's fun to reread his stuff. Like before we were recording, I was rereading these and I was sitting there, I was chuckling, going, "Yeah, there's that scene, yeah," and I was just it was. There's nice stuff to look in the background that you, maybe if you're reading it straight through, you're not going to catch it. Sometimes there's stuff I'm not going to catch second or third read-throughs. It's, but it's enjoyable just to, go through the pages and look and see what you can find. It's, it's one of the things that we both really love about his artwork.
If you go to RagingBullets.com, on the website, I have my Robin sketch that I got from, I hesitate to even call them sketches. They're commission work. It really was. He put in my sketch book, but it was definitely commission level work. He did of Robin, which actually it's the fold out inside cover of my sketchbook. It's gorgeous. And if you take a look at his Superman, he's a huge Superman fan, so I asked him to do this. Actually, we had a discussion last night which you guys will be hearing next week, with Mandy talking about Superman for Tomorrow, and I talked about Freddie's artwork in there, because just immediately came to my mind how great his Superman is. The point of this is, FreddieArt.com, if you go there, Freddie periodically is able to do commission work. It depends on what his workload is for DC, and I would highly recommend at conventions, if Freddie's there, if you're going to Chicago, do yourself a favor and get something done from this guy, because it's stellar. And the work speaks for itself. Like I said, go to our site, click on it. You can see what he's done for me. Have this guy do something for you, because it's very, very cool work. I have, both times when I got my book back, I was blown away and just incredibly satisfied with what he does. So if you don't see him at a con, check his site for when he's offering commission work and do yourself a favor, because you won't be dissatisfied. And definitely follow his work, because he's the growth that, because I remember when Robin, 1 year later, we started following all the books, and I remember as Robin was going on and on, you became such a huge fan of Robin because of the artwork. And we talked about that run with Beechin and Williams, how much we really enjoyed that. Yeah. But then his return to the book. I loved with Flash. Yeah. Flash is a great study. If you pick up his Flash run that he did, it's a great study in progression. You get to see an artist feeling out his work with a character, and then really mastering it by the end. I felt by the end of it that we got to see a real maturing of his take on how he was handling the
Flash universe. And
so I would definitely recommend picking that up for anybody who's an art fan and just wants to see a sense of progression. That his whole work on that run was really a great art study for anybody that's interested in doing that. And his Robin run is a great way to see both when he initially was on Robin, and then when he came back, a maturing that matched not only what was going on with the character, but the artist as well, who has, he worked on a character, went and worked on a different character and learned something about himself and grew as an artist, and came back and brought that maturity to Robin again. Yeah. It's very cool. It's one of the things I enjoy about comics, besides the storytelling and the art and how it enhances these wonderful characters that I love. But I love watching how writers' scripts improve, watching how artists improve. It's not a static field. People get, when a new creative team comes on, a lot of times people get a little impatient. Give a book a run, because once you get an opportunity to see what this creative team's doing and how they're gelling and how they're growing, a lot of times that's the best time to see whether or not they're the right creative team on the book for you. I'm not saying that sometimes you'll hit a book where the creative team comes on and they're not your creative team, but sometimes after the first initial, Titans was a great example of that with Sean McKeever.
Yeah.
That first arc for me, I thought was good. It was the future Titans arc.
Titans of Tomorrow.
Yeah, but it was really after that arc that I began to really feel that his Titans run started to take off, and I got really into it. So I think that's something that it fits in this particular case as well. I really loved when Freddie came on to Robin, and we got to see his growth. I saw Sean McKeever's growth was my point with that as a writer.
Oh, yeah.
And his understanding of those characters. I've enjoyed watching Freddie since he first worked with Robin, and his growth as an artist with Robin all the way through. Kind of a long way to say that, but I think it applies to not just artists, and I think it is something that, as fans, it's one of the joy of following these books monthly. We aren't just seeing people in isolated sequences. We are seeing them for long stretches on a title, and we really get an opportunity to get to know the creators as well as the characters they're working on. So that's kind of a neat thing about it. It's kind of a neat side effect of it. I try to get as much value as possible from these books.
It's funny, as we're talking, I'm remembering this great fight sequence that where Human Flame and Seductress are using to get away. Just her dialogue that she's going on really does let you know that we're not dealing with a brain surgeon. She's sitting there telling Mike about how when Immortus dies off, he's going to leave me everything. I'm going to get everything, and he's like, yeah, that's really going to happen with a guy named Immortus. She's like, what's immortal mean again? And I was just little funny bits like that as this huge action fight sequence. They're duking out with the cops, shooting, blasting, and little funny moments like that. And then later she's talking about her pheromones, how she calls them.
Do you think she's really that ditzy?
Yes.
Or do you think that she was faking it?
Oh, no, that was really
I thought so,
ditzy. Too. That was really her lack of intent. And just, she talks about her pheromones, she calls her angel dust. It's not like the stuff I used to sell, but, it's the that same style. And I'm like, okay, yeah, so we have a junkie here who got enhancements. She probably was turning tricks, maybe a little bit of stripping there, and she got these other enhancements, gets into this supervillain group. So once again, we have another person who has fallen on harder times, who really can't pick themselves up, that Immortus brought in, took over, gave them their enhancements.
She's a definite parody.
Yeah. Oh,
and I liked that. Yeah. It's funny, Mike gets back to the hideout and wants to steal Immortus's formula, and perhaps the money. With Milo there, wouldn't you be asking how to deactivate the pain that Immortus can cause? Because that was like one of the first things for me. It does. I didn't, and this isn't a criticism, it's just the opposite. I think it shows us part of the problem Mike has.
Yeah.
He never sees the big picture. He never thinks of that. And it reminds us that he's not the sharpest tool in the shed. Immortus shows up, and of course the plastic blonde immediately switches allegiances back to Immortus. Maybe even alerted Immortus, except I don't know that even she thinks that far ahead.
No, that was just, it was the sports guy who figured it out.
Yeah. Oh, because of the pheromones that she used, right.
Yeah.
Mike jumps out the window to escape, and the last page close-up of Mike falling basically on his face. I loved this conversation with Freddie, because he said it took him longer than those close-ups usually do. He said that normally it's a little bit of a breather to do those close-up pages like that, because of lack of background detail. But this one took a while. He wanted him to look painfully hurt, and possibly dead, but still leave the question for the readers, especially with the neck and body in awkward position. So you wanted him to say, well, he could be. I was thinking of in the movie Doc Hollywood. I shared this story from it. Doc Hollywood, Michael J. Fox's car, the whole premise of the thing is his car runs through a fence and gets damaged, and they do repair work on it. Well, when he's going to leave the town, it gets hit by a semi-truck. So, through this whole movie, it was this whole thing that he wanted to get to L.A. He finally gets his car, and he's heading to L.A. He stops off to help
deliver a baby.
Right. It was great. And then his car is parked in the middle of the street, gets hit by a semi-truck. Totally demolished. The two mechanics come up and look at it and go, I think I can repair that. The thing basically looked like it was crushed to the point of being a tin can. They did end up repairing it, but, so I think we're left to feel the same way with Mike. I think it can be okay, maybe. He's kind of like a tin can at this point. Well, I like that.
I liked in the fight sequence before that. You know, how he was sitting there, and even though Mike's been, augmented, he's been beefed up, and he looks good, he still is the same Mike underneath. He still was out of shape. As he's running away, he's like, oh, I got to get back in shape. And I was laughing because I'm like, he's a Cadillac, man. He looks good, but gets no gas mileage.
Right. Well, because it was cosmetic what they did to him. Yeah. You can't make muscles unless you're making him bionic, and they didn't do that.
No.
So I actually like that distinction that internally, Mike still needs to, if he wants to be able to be that person, he needs to work out, needs to exercise, needs to...
But he doesn't care.
Do some
really.
cardio.
And you think about it, he didn't care about that. He looked good. That's all that mattered to him. So I'm done. But then
that's why it's cosmetic.
Yeah, it's the realization, hey, you really need to do the work. Mm-hmm. And I did like Immortus, as you mentioned, how when Mike jumps off the third floor, he's like, stop, wait, we're on the third floor, you idiot. And it was just, I could see him just, doing that little drop in his voice saying, oh, moron, kind of type of deal. That was a cool look on his face.
It's actually going back to when Freddie was talking about the one girl being the parody on all of that, the way that people are surgically altering themselves and stuff. You think about people that get liposuction to get fat pulled out of their body. That's nothing wrong with that, because some people need that, okay? I'll even agree with that point. But it goes to show that even when you get that done, you do need to add an exercise regimen into there for your heart, for your muscles, for cardiovascular, all that stuff, needs to be in place as well. So it was an interesting little parody again. This book is in your face with a lot of parodies of, the quick way out. You would think Mike would say now that he's been enhanced,
he needs to take care of himself.
I don't see Mike doing the Rocky Balboa thing, though, and starting to run stairs.
No, I don't see that. He ain't going anywhere near a Stairmaster.
Yeah. Unless some pivotal event changes that. So I don't know. Like I said, we got 3 more issues yet, and we've gotten a lot of content so far. I did like the blurb. Next, things get a little painful. The humor in this really works, because, how much more painful can it get than... And it is a parody of where he's currently at.
He's got like 2 teeth flying out, blood going. He's definitely got, easily broken jaw, possibly neck injuries. Now, a little painful. A little, dang, hate to see what a lot is.
I'm anxious to see this team on JSA All-Stars. To see them take this team. And when we talk, like I said, more about the San Diego Comic-Con stuff, we'll talk more about JSA All-Stars and Freddie's book.
Yeah.
As well. I'll mention that in that segment. So please listen for that. And that'll be in the show notes as well. The title of Freddie's book and stuff, so you can kind of seek that out. But Robin's backup, which is the final... Robin's last issue had an Origin of Omens backup, which was the lead into Blackest Night. And when we talked with Freddie, we kind of talked casually about this. And I'm going to talk casually about it here as well. But it really is another tale of the difference between vengeance and justice, and how there is a huge difference between the two. He was supposed to originally color all of Run. This was kind of like a test run for him, but the amount of time that it took, because he actually did the color work on this backup, and the amount of time that it took him to do that actually made him rethink whether or not he'd be able to do that for Run.
And I remember when I first read that backup, because I saw written story by art by, and whenever I see Freddie with art by, I just assume pencils and inks, because that's usually what he does. And as I'm going through, about halfway through that back, I'm like, man, I don't know who's the colorist on this. They're really on fire with Freddie. And then I went back, I'm like, wait. Oh my God, he did the colors too. So that was, for me, I was like really excited to see, because it was such a perfect, just beautiful blend with the pencils, inks, and colors in there that I was like really just, wow, impressed by it. It had It had a different look, a different feel, but it fit that whole voodoo type vibe they had going.
Sorry, I thought you were done. I'm a big fan of different color work because of the fact that you get to see just how much a colorist brings to the table.
Yeah.
Freddie doing his own color work on that was just another different coloring style on there. And there's nothing simple about doing color work on a comic. And I've become a big fan of color work in comics and all that. And it was great to see Freddie have an opportunity to do some of his own color work on there. I didn't realize that was something that he had done. It was kind of cool to see that. It was neat. So again, it's just another style. I like that color work doesn't feel cookie cutter to me by any stretch. It's all... It adds a unique flavor to a story. I love it. Actually, it gives that pop. You always say that, pop.
Yeah, because that pop.
And it does. Great color work gives a different, pop to it. David Barron and Alan Paslak have been on the show, and Art Lyon. 3, all color work. All 3 of them very unique in their presentations, and I love that. Moose Ballman is another great example. We got to see him in a lot of Green Lantern work, somebody who I'm a big fan of. There's a lot of just wonderful...
There's some great color.
Rob Schwager on... I want to tout him on Jonah Hex. It's just a series to me that color work adding atmosphere to
and
me.
Style. And,
just
definitely
actually,
got in the groove of that.
Yeah, because it's one of those books that it really is enhanced so much by color.
It was, from that Robin issue, we talked to Freddie about that. I was just so impressed by the rain sequence, how it had that feel of just the overall saturation through. It wasn't just raindrops drawn here. It was actually pulling me into when I was reading the book. And he was saying how he kind of went into a little bit of explanation how it was like the layering of the artwork into the rain type of format. It's one of those things where I'm so miffed that we lost that interview. Because that for me was just great as he's going through and explaining it, and it's something that he actually That's
why I wanted to do this though and have this discussion, because we talked with Freddie for over 3 hours, and I wanted to pull as much of it as you and I could back into this discussion because I thought it was a very worthwhile and awesome discussion. And as Freddie said very generously, we talked to him afterwards. He said it was a fun discussion. And he said, we've got that to walk away from. But I wanted to be able to pull as much of it as I could into this discussion, which obviously is going to be a little shorter because we don't have him here for it. But I wanted to pull in just as much of the tone and passion of this particular discussion because I had fun with it. What was interesting to me was that the color choices that he made with doing that Origins and Omens, a lot of that was driven by what was going on in the main story because he wanted to make sure that it wasn't a jarring change. I really liked that. I respected that. He would have gone with a more painted style if he was doing the work on the whole issue. But I liked that it shows that he was concerned with the audience and doing what was best for the entire issue versus just the section that he was coloring. I think that's something we saw, for example, in Trinity.
Yeah.
Where those two colorists were working very well together as well.
And there was a nice flow through, and there was never any, whoa, big change.
Well, they probably set certain palettes very early on that they were using to stay kind of consistent with what they were doing. I really liked that. I've always enjoyed the passion that Freddie has when talking about the character of Tim Wayne, how much he would love to work on that character again in the future. And it's we kept doing the Wayne Drake thing.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed that he said, especially because he and Fabian had the opportunity to work with that character again, just how much the two of them would like to revisit it, because they're creators who I really enjoy. So hopefully in the future we'll get an opportunity to see them again working.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Something with that character. Be a Man and the parents. The story there, Tim had to confront something where he had to make a decision with whether or not he was going to get revenge for what happened to his mother, or if he was going to basically get justice. And there's a huge difference there. And I like when Tim has to face very mature issues because we see the kind of man that he really is. Because we've seen Tim have to go to some very dark, very mature places, but we never lose him.
Yeah.
And I think we're seeing that in Red Robin right now with him. And it was funny, one of the things I complimented Freddie on was what he and Fabian did with how they were dealing with mature issues with this character, was they prepared him without knowing what Red Robin was going to be like. They prepared him in a way that feels very organic to where he is now.
Yeah, there's definitely a nice, beautiful flow-through from what was to what it is.
Yeah, because when I read Red Robin #1, I didn't feel like, what the heck happened?
Yeah,
we knew.
Yeah, we knew exactly why he was there, what had gone down.
And even from this to Battle for the Cowl to Red Robin, his transition was very well done. So I've got to compliment them and editorial for making just some really good decisions on how to organically put this character where he's at now. It's actually got me all the more curious to see where he's going to go from here, because he's a very important character to me. I remember the outcry when Dick Grayson was possibly on the chopping block, way back when that was even on there. And it is funny how I think we're obviously very convinced Dick Grayson's safe as can be. But Tim Wayne is another character that I've followed him since he first became Robin. He's a character I have never stopped reading.
Cool.
Since he was first introduced in Lonely Place of Dying. I've never stopped reading Tim Drake. So
that's neat.
He's very important to me.
Yeah. And we're still getting him, and we're still getting good stories with him. Now, I don't want to... Freddie is my Robin artist. And, we all have our personal preferences. I know you have some preferences on Hawkman, but Freddie is my Robin artist.
Sure.
So this, for me, it was a bittersweet issue for me to read because I knew it was his last issue he was working on him, but it's sweet in that it was such just a beautiful, just if you're going to go out, this is how you go out, man. You put up bam, and you drop the A-bomb. And that was I was like, yeah, that's, especially, we talked about how a lot of times when we have colorists on, they'll talk about, the light source and using that to, with the cast of reflection and just where, it's coming from. And in the Robin sequence, like when he was outdoors going into the hideout, you saw the bright light in the background leading him into it with the shadows back. When he's actually in there fighting and duking out, you got the shadows coming through, and there's a little bit of funk going on with the colors because Tim is being drugged or some type of alteration to his perception. So the colors are going to shift a little bit, but not enough that it was a psychedelic trip.
Right.
But it was enough just to let you know that there's something funky going on here. And that was a beautiful, beautiful balance in the coloring that he did.
It is heart-wrenching to have to face your parents who are dead, knowing, because especially with Identity Crisis, you got to see Tim go through something horrible with his dad, and to know what that did to him.
That really still, as much as...
I think that those are pivotal events along with the death of Bruce.
Yeah.
Have had a major effect on him right now.
And it's funny because we're talking about when the way his dad died. I was talking to my folks about this back when we did Identity Crisis. And as I'm describing the sequence, I was actually getting a little choked up. And I was telling my mom about it, and she's like, wow, that was just like, because the dad's sitting there on the phone, Tim, it's not your fault. You're doing a great job. I don't blame you. It's that great dad moment where he doesn't want his son to feel any responsibility. He knows there's a good chance I'm about to die. My kid's trying to come to save me, but he's probably not going to make it in time. I don't want him to feel any guilt over it. And I still remember reading that issue and still remember reading that part going, whoa, that's just heavy.
I want to do some quick shots, if we could, on the Final Crisis Aftermath series, the other ones. And I mean really quick, super speeding bullet styles. But I want to talk about them. Final Crisis Aftermath Escape. This is the series that follows Nemesis. And really not just... It's a global peace agency that was introduced in Final Crisis. Has Nemesis, Fire, Chase, and more. Do you think Amanda Waller is really a prisoner? Because she's there, but... Because
it's hard for me to... on one hand, it says yes.
Talk about a trip. You were talking about it just in that. I think right now... I don't know what's real, because it's one of the things I like about this book. It's very disorienting when you read it, but I really feel like we're disoriented in the same way that Nemesis is.
Yeah.
And we're supposed to be feeling like we're there with him. And I don't know what's real and what's not, because I thought Flag was there, but then that didn't make sense, and now he's vanished, and
it's Flag I don't think was ever there. I think Waller.
Well, he's clearly not. I mean, we've already that's been established in the storytelling that Flag wasn't there. Waller even says that, but now I wonder what's
up with her, and
or if she is there, is she playing him, or
it's Waller? So I have a hard time believing she would get played. Just because who she is,
but I wonder if she isn't playing him on something.
Yeah, see, I'm thinking she's the if not the brains behind it, she is. She's maybe playing both sides or playing on the one side, and it's she's fighting for her own position because there does seem a little bit of a desperation we're getting off of her. Like, she's not really sitting pretty, but she's not as bad as Nemesis is. So maybe she's earned some of the trustees, whoever the true money and power behind this, she's earned some of their trust, so they're giving her some privileges, but not, she doesn't have complete freedom. Is how I'm kind of seeing.
I mean, they're thinking that's the case, or that she actually is a part of this global peace agency.
Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, that could be as well, but I don't know.
Or she could be a figure of his imagination.
I don't think that's one thing I don't think. What? I really don't think she's a figure.
Think she's there?
I think she's physically there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's the mysterious man whose name's not revealed? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
The guy, I don't know what his deal is.
I don't know.
It's kind of a mystery in this whole thing. No, I mean, I'm throwing that out, that's kind of I'm enjoying that mystery. I want to know. Like, it's well developed enough that I really want to know who it is. Now, what do you think they're being held for? Why was he captured?
I don't see. I'm still trying to figure that one out, and I'm hoping we get.
Does he know secrets that they're trying to keep secret? Does he know things about the crisis itself that they're trying to keep secret?
Yeah, if you remember, like the movie Firefly, where they wanted to get the River Chan because of knowledge she had that she didn't know, that she didn't know that she knew all about where the Reavers come, where they come from, and I'm thinking it's something like that where he's got something in his head. He doesn't know what it is yet, and maybe it's and they're worried that. After the final crisis, after everything that's happened, he's going to be able to do more damage to us.
Is this punishment for being that it's the Global Peace Agency? Remember that they were, for a while there, Diana was being hunted down.
Yeah.
Is this Dr. Psycho doing this?
Ooh, that could be interesting.
Remember what was happening in Diana's book? Is that part of this? Is this in his head? Is this Dr. Psycho doing this? Is this an after effect of what was happening with him in Wonder Woman?
Yeah.
Because remember, he basically sided with Diana and was actually ignoring orders.
Yeah, he stepped away from the...
So is Dr. Psycho doing this to him? Is kind of one of my theories as a possibility.
Dude, I don't know. That could definitely be, and it would fit the whole mind games that's going on, the whole everything that is, and Waller not.
Because he crafted a world, and that fits the disorientation. Are we seeing what happens when Dr. Psycho does this to you? Now, the Spy Smasher reset, is that from the reel? Do you feel the wheel? Can you be spun on the wheel and get your own release, or is it just about others? Because... at first Chase is on there, and that caused the Spy Smasher reset. But then Nemesis goes on there and gets Chase's freedom, right?
I think.
Do you think Chase is really there too? Is she part of all this?
See,
Cameron Chase? Are these people that I don't know?
That's
because there's a story to be told here. Like, what is the Global Peace Agency doing? Are they I have to wonder if it isn't Dr. Psycho, is it somebody like Dr. Psycho that's doing this?
Yeah. See, I was always thinking that it was just the psychedelic drugs, the injections, the
But in a world of metahumans,
I wasn't. It never entered my head that it would be a telepathic type.
Right. I'm not saying it has to be Dr. Psycho. I'm just saying part of me has to believe that there could be a metahuman at work here.
And honestly, it's weird. I don't think. Part of me was saying she's not actually there, and that I'm thinking, on one hand, I have in my head that it's just him only, and it's maybe the agency or somebody trying to get back at him for turning their back on. They're going through the whole brainwashing technique, maybe controlling so they can get their guy back. They want their lapdog back. They want him under their control, and this is their process of doing it. Then another side of me is saying, no, they're actually some of the people are there, some of them aren't. It's done to throw you off. It's it's his mind trying to fight back. He is the hero. He saved Cameron, not it's that type of stuff. So it's I don't know, and that's the thing. That's part of the thing that I enjoy about the series is that I don't know this, but part of me that sometimes does annoy me. If
I think it. Sometimes it doesn't because I think it's by design.
Yeah.
I don't want it spoon-fed if it's by design.
sometimes I want it spoon-fed. Sometimes I don't, and it's weird. Like, this is a book I definitely have to be in the mood to read when I'm reading it. You know?
I will be annoyed if there aren't answers at the end.
Oh, definitely.
Because, like, my feeling with this series is, by the end, I should know enough that when I go back and reread it, I'm like, oh, wow,
yeah.
you know. And I think that my personal feeling, this is speculation at this point, my personal feeling is this disorientation you feel reading it is by design to feel like you're in there with him.
Yes.
And we're going through what he's going through.
Yeah.
And I like that.
Agree.
As long as there's the payoff of it all being revealed, which I can't imagine it not being the case.
Yeah,
So I'm into it. It's a head trip, and I agree with you. I have to be in the mood to read it when I do read it, but I'm liking it. If this was the only title I'm reading, I'd probably it'd be very hard for me.
Right.
But by the fact that I'm reading so many other titles, I'm really enjoying the unique nature of this book. I'm putting a lot of confidence into the payoff that I think is coming. If that doesn't come, that will totally change my current state of mind about it. But I gotta think, if it's by design, there's going to be a payoff.
There's going to be a definitive ending. There has to be. If there's not, that would change my whole opinion.
Oh, I'd be downright angry. But I don't think. I mean, I really don't think that's the case.
I don't think so
I think this is definitely meant to be a head trip.
Yeah.
Final Crisis Aftermath Inc. I've read the first 2 issues so far. I think 3 came out with our books today. I'm not sure. I haven't read 3 yet, basically.
Yeah, me neither.
But this is the story of the Tattooed Man. I love his relationship with his wife and how that is developed here. She knows he's a good man, but also that she has her own definition of what being a good man means for him. And I don't know if you know what I'm talking about there. There is a definite, like, her definition of him being a good man is not what you would typically... He's not like Superman. He's not like, the typical superhero. She has her priorities straight when it comes to her concern for her family. And that's where she thinks he's a good man. He's a good family man in her eyes. As a good mother, she's concerned with her son and how recent choices affect him. And she thinks that's where her husband's priorities need to be. And I think she gets annoyed with the outside world's perception of him, but she's more concerned with her perception of him as a good man, and that she knows he's a good man in spite of what other people say about him. Is that how you feel?
Yeah, dude. I'm right here. I'm quiet because I'm completely agreeing with you. I don't think I could put it better. It's one of the things I liked is
a distinction.
There's a definite distinction. There's definite character personality here. Mm-hmm. And these are not your same type of heroes. These are not your same type of characters. We talked about, Secret Six, they have that beautiful, twisted, humor in the villain side. Run had that another twisted kind of humor in the villain side. With him, there's not so much the twisted humor villain side. No. It's his own personality. I
like that.
Yeah, and it's a nice change. Yeah, it's a great usage of the villains. You don't just have to have them the villain. You don't have to have them megalomaniacs. You have this villain / hero / whatever he is.
This is a cool series.
Yeah, it's definitely and this is another one of those that you sit back, you read, you enjoy it, you reread it a couple times, just look at how the characters are perceiving, because you look at things differently than I look at things differently. They'll look at things differently than anybody else. It's it's your personal opinion, your personal choice based on your life experiences. Uh-huh. If we were to talk to somebody from old money who grew up a trust fund, never had to, pick up a shovel and dig a hole in the ground, he's going to look at life differently than you or I would. Just because where they're from. This guy, he's had that tough life. He's lived, he's been a survivor. Right. We saw that in Final Crisis, where he was zigging and zagging. He was taking care of his own family. He didn't really even want to get pulled into the whole hero bit, but he had to. It was no choice in the matter. It had to be done. So I like that. And we're continuing seeing that different take on life from him in this series.
He's zigging and zagging.
Yeah.
They live in a place where her son gets involved and manipulated by some bad people. This is his way to try and rebel and sort of to get out of Dad's shadow, I would think. I think we have all been there, but fortunately don't live in this world. And I think that's what it is. I think it's something that's very natural, but because it's such a dark world, that's something that he has to deal with. I really like that we see this man's struggle, meaning Tattooed Man's, with his new respect from the JLA. I was glad to see the clarification of his honorary member status, which he still holds. Status, not statish. Inventing new words, yes. He has status.
Yeah.
You know, whatever he wants if you remember the JLA. And how hard it is to be a hero when the life of a villain worked for him on some level. It isn't easy to be a hero. Next week we're going to be talking a lot about this and For Tomorrow. Talking about life of a hero, because we've had this discussion already. But it is something that it's interesting to see a villain try to fit into that world. And he wants to fit in that world. You know, he wants to do the right thing. Plus, his power is working against him on some level. I like that twist in this story, that it's not as simple as just him trying to turn good. Now his power is not, as stolen money winds up in his home. He's figuring that mind control is involved, and once again, circumstances with his son stops this search, because I like that. Why is it so hard for him to get to the bottom of this? Because what's going on with his son has kept him from being able to. He's not a selfish man. Human Flame would have solved this problem already, because he could care less about anybody else. He would have been focused on, hey, what's going on with me? Tattooed Man, on the other hand, is concerned for his kid, so his search is going on for a while. I like the distinction there. Two different villain style characters, two very different situations, because Tattooed Man's got different priorities. I like that. It puts him face to face with some villains he might have worked with in the past. Do you think at the end of this he's going to be a hero or a villain, or is it less simple than that?
I think he is going to. This was one where I think we're going to see an evolution of the character.
I think so too.
And we're going to see a mixture of hero villain. It's going to be, he's going to be like a Stone Cold Steve Austin. He's not going to be Superman, dun, 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 but he's not going to be a villain. He's going to walk on the side of good. He's going to be a good guy, and he's going to help people. But it's
a
not
good guy with an attitude.
It's going to be a good guy with an attitude. Yeah,
or more of a street level good guy, more of a
street level. Yeah, definitely street level good guy. I see him dealing. He would be the type of hero who deals with the gang problems and deals with the thug, the street level type villains, not the I'm going to conquer the world villains.
Mm-hmm. He's the type of guy that I think I'd love to see in a backup feature.
Yeah. Oh, he'd be a great
feature.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
He's one of those guys that I don't think could survive necessarily in his own book. I'd read him.
Yeah.
But because I think he's an interesting, cool character. Team-wise, I don't know. I don't know where would see him wind up out of this.
Here's something. Actually,
I'd love to see him.
I would honestly, and this is going to be probably a weird statement. Some people maybe. I'd like to see him be on the Justice League.
I would too.
Just see that where his honorary status pulls him. They pull him into a mission, or somehow he gets thrown in the middle of it, and he's like, "Hey, I'm doing this thing. If you guys want to come along, fine. But I'm taking care of this problem." And just kind of seeing him working with these bigger heroes and these big names, and seeing, maybe it's a little over his head, maybe it's not, and just see him struggle through, and a mentorship from one of them or something like that would be kind of a neat thing.
Justice League and Avengers both explored things like reservists.
Yeah.
And I always liked that concept. When you're the premier team, you would have certain characters that maybe aren't on the core group, but there are a couple of slots that would rotate in and out based on missions. Where you'd have just a couple people that they'd be in for an arc, and when the arc was done, their special expertise were no longer needed, so they wouldn't be in there. I always was a fan of that, because I thought it just led to some different storytelling dynamics and things like that. So I would be curious to see that explored again at some point. I don't know. I don't see him. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't see him being on the Justice League, but I definitely would like to see him. I like him enough that I'd like to see him somewhere. You know what the problem is? The sheer number of characters that I'm finding really enjoyable right now. We'd have a 37-team roster. It'd be way too many characters.
It'd be like your top of the stack.
Yeah, it would be. Well, I mean, yours as well. I love that you say that to me. How many books you pulling?
It's a statish.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But it is interesting to me. Yeah, I mean, like, wait, what was the last time you came onto the show and told us about a book that, boy, I'm really not enjoying that. Spare me. My top of the stack isn't as big as you think, by the way.
I know.
But
it's fun picking on you.
Yeah. Except it works for you as well. It's funny, though, when I look at Tattooed Man, he is one of those characters that fits into that group. There's a lot of characters that I think work better on a team because they just wouldn't go solo. I think JSA, like right now, is a great example of a team that's gotten so big that it warrants 2 books. I'm excited for 2 JSA books. Because I'm into them enough, like twice a month JSA with 2 different squads.
2 different squads, 2
That's a way to handle
creative
it.
teams. Just definitely looking forward to see how these teams interact. What is going to be All Stars? Is that going to be? Are they going to do old guard, new guard? Are they going to mix the 2 together?
We'll talk a little bit about that in our next segment because I want to talk a little bit of the San Diego Comic-Con news that came out.
Roger.
So we'll talk about that a little bit. I'm not going to talk everything that happened at the con because a lot of that information is available on the net, but I want to do some reactions to it. I knew there was something I was forgetting. Final Crisis Aftermath Dance.
Come on, Sean. Are we human or are we done, sir?
This follows the Super Young team, and there's been 3 issues so far. They seem to be getting what they want. This team, especially when they were introduced, they want more fame. They want a chance to really hit the big time. I like that Superbat, especially. I think the whole team is showing a lot of growth, but Superbat seems to be at this point where he's trying to find his place in the world. It's no longer enough to be just the richest guy who can...
Yeah. His power is awesomeness.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, but I think he really wants that to be the case. And I think he's really trying to find his proper place in the world. I did like in issue 3 when his whole team is getting basically attacked. Where's he at? He's busy making time with the girl who's dressed in his costume. And you can tell that's his M.O.
Yeah.
He's like the rock star who, who's got a different girl in every town. It's life on the road of the Super Young team. He wants to party up and...
he's a limousine riding, jet flying, wheeling, dealing son of a gun.
And it really shows this team right now, there's an immaturity to them. I think multiple members on the team want more than that. My heart goes out for the Lantern guy, because he is so in love to the point where he's willing to spend time with the girl that's dressed like her so he can get that time for himself. Lolita Canary, is that the one? And she's in love with the speedster of the team. So it is like this 90210 style drama that's going on, which fits the age group. I was very cool. They are an interesting team, and I'm glad to see, though, that she reaches a point where she's over, quote unquote, over the speedster now. And nothing is simple with this team at all. I'm following this one. It's another one of those that, as I'm reading it, I'm still having trouble getting my head completely around where I think they're going to go from here. Because back when they were first introduced in Final Crisis, the old guard was really down on them because, they were today's generation, more interested in being on YouTube than they were in actually accomplishing something. And it does feel like this team hasn't actually, other than their role in Final Crisis and being a part of pulling all those events together, they really haven't accomplished anything heroic outside of being a part of that.
Yeah, you can't say, look at, they did this and they did this. No, they've had a couple fights in there and they've done some throwdowns and, they got some power to them, but they have no focus. They're spread out. And it's even like their handlers.
A lot of glitz and glamour with no substance.
Yeah, their handlers even want the glitz and glamour, no substance. They are trying to,
they're actually encouraging it.
Yeah, they're seeing the dollar signs. It's kind of like how with the
merchandising, toys, let's, get the action cartoon out there. And, it's all about that. but it doesn't really matter if they've actually done something. We'll play out their adventures in fantasy.
And we'll make it look like they did do something. It's like the celebrity celeb reality TV or the reality TV where there's behind-the-scenes stuff where they're tweaking it. It's not true reality TV we're watching. We're seeing editors say, hey, that year so-and-so said this about you. What do you think of that?
It's social commentary on a lot of what our media is like today, or a lot of our television entertainment's like today. And that was, to me, what's gripping me in this series. I think where I'm saying I'm not sure where this is going, I don't mean it as a negative in any way. It's my question is, I'm Superbat's kind of my go-to character right now. I'm finding his journey interesting because it seems like he's looking at this classic hero of his who's being visited by. And do you think those are his own mind, or do you think he's really genuinely being visited by like the specter of this classic hero?
I was initially thinking his own. I was thinking it's in his head, but then I started thinking these kids have had some connections to some higher powers.
Yeah, so
maybe
what's going on here?
And maybe it's not even that higher power that maybe it's not that this legendary hero. Maybe it's part of the other higher power that he was kind of connected to, and he's seeing it this way.
Yeah, so I don't know. I'm with you. It's an interesting. I'm kind of in between on that, on what's really going on there. I think that's something that's yet to be answered. I really am quite enjoying that exploration.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
He's a character. He wants to grow up. Grow up. I don't know if that's necessarily the right word. I think he really wants to be a genuine hero. He wants to really do like these cool and amazing things and really save the day.
Yeah, we're seeing the evolution of him.
Yeah.
The other characters, they're still. I wouldn't say, they're going through some changes, growth maybe, but they're not like him. He really is. It's the birth of a hero in him. We're seeing the struggle. We're seeing.
They're all dissatisfied with their current status quo, and even when they get it's funny. Third issue was a pivotal point for me because you talked about the handlers, how they're making all the wrong mistakes. It's the team clearly is breaking up because one of the members is ready to leave because she just had enough. I loved that there was people dressed up as everybody except her. And all of a sudden, in comes this fat guy with this ill-fitting outfit with the wings over there. The satire there was so great because it was a costume that was so poorly put together. But you knew that the guy had a lot of heart behind it because we've seen him at cons. That guy probably is one of the bigger fans because he went and made the costume himself. And at the end of the whole thing, it was like. It seems like all of them are in that in-between place where they split up because they don't know where they want to go from here. And I found that to be pretty infectious about this series.
Yeah.
Was that they're really at a point where they want to go one step further. They want to find that next place they're going to go to. I don't know. I'm curious to see what this team... Here's a team I've got a question about. Do you think this team could go to series? I don't know. I like them in minis.
Yeah, I like them in minis. I don't know how well they would transfer over, to like a monthly series, whether people would want to see this.
It depends on where this goes. Like, I'm intrigued right now to finish the miniseries.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying it. I would like to finish the end of it. I keep... A lot of times whenever we have minis like this, I'm thinking to myself, like, what characters would I like to see continue on? Like, Human Flame, I clearly would like to see him appear in the DC Universe again. I'm clear on that. Nemesis, I'm already adoring in Wonder Woman, so it's kind of a no-brainer there.
Yeah, and Ink we want in. Tattoo Man, we want in.
I'd like to see him somewhere. Yeah. I don't know where I'd like to see him.
And here's the funny thing. I keep, when I said Ink, and part of me wants to see, with him as a growth, even change. Have him not go by Tattoo Man anymore. Actually have him go by Ink or something different. Because, even separating himself from what he was. It's like, we saw that with Tim Wayne, where he's no longer Robin, he's Red Robin. There's the...
but
and we know there's
being
different
Red Robin,
reasons. There's different reasons, but the same type of thing where he needs to separate himself from what he was before. Tattooed Man needs to separate himself. He's no longer Tattooed Man, who was this thug and villain.
Except now, as Tattooed Man, he has a certain amount of notoriety from his role in Final Crisis and his honorary member status in JLA, so I don't know that changing his name to Ink...
But if he doesn't...
If you take a look at the newsreels in those issues, the first 2 issues so far, the newsreels there, I don't know that he would have the same motivation to change the name. If you look at the way the news is handling
no. Oh no, I agree with you. And it's his name.
I think
Tattoo Man has a name.
Before that.
Well, Tattoo Man has the name. And that's what I'm thinking. He turns his back on the name, turns his back on the fame. He's like, I'm not going after that fame. I'm doing the right thing. This is why, it's just a thought that's popped in my head. He could actually turn his back on the fame and say,
what would the motivation be, though?
Because he wants to do the right thing. And sometimes doing the right thing... Hold on.
How is that the right thing?
Give me a second. Let me speak. Sometimes doing the right thing is the hard thing. And the easy thing would be to capitalize on his name, his recognition, his notoriety as Tattoo Man.
How is he capitalizing on any of that?
Well, that's what he could. If he continues on, he could maybe there's going to be a
doesn't make any sense though.
I'm talking possible future stuff that could happen. Like right now,
okay, because in this series, I don't see him becoming Ink. There's nothing in this series that alluded me to the fact that this guy would change his name.
Okay, see, you
still haven't explained that to me.
Okay, I'm thinking like 15, 20 issues down the line. Just so we're on the same wavelength here. I'm not talking at the end of...
How do we know this isn't like something I'm thinking of as going to series?
But that's how I've been thinking about this guy.
So you actually would like... that is an interesting discussion point. You're thinking like you would like to see this guy in his own series.
Yes, and I don't think... Here's the funny thing. Now you're making a lot more sense. Yeah, see, I didn't specify that. Sorry,
because I thought you were talking about at the end of the miniseries, and I'm like, what in this series is? You're like baffling because you're sitting here saying because he's going for notoriety and all sort of stuff, and I'm like, he isn't in this series. There's nothing in this series with him going to notoriety. I was thinking in the current miniseries, you were totally throwing me.
Yeah, sorry.
I was like, what in the world is he talking about?
Yeah, see, here's the thing.
I thought you were reading a different book than I was. No, you're playing hypothetical. If this were to go into series,
go on
as a Tattoo Man somewhere down the road.
Let me actually say what I should have said.
I completely understand you now.
Let me just lay this out so people completely understand what I'm saying. Okay, we go through the current series. He's Tattoo Man. By the end of the series, he starts getting the notoriety and starts getting some respect. That maybe he's not the street punk that he was. That leads to additional stories with him. Now,
after he's already evolved, you're talking about.
Right. This is the miniseries is his evolvement. Mm-hmm. It starts showing that there is a good man in there. There is a hero in there, and he brings I'm betting it's going to be dealing with.
You're banking a lot on him becoming a definite good guy at the end of this.
As I said, he's going to be a Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Okay.
By the end of this series, he's going to be like that. He's not going to be your cookie cutter, clean cut hero. He can't. Be in that style.
But wouldn't the name? Okay, I guess going off of what you're saying, because I think I'm totally in sync with what you're saying now. Wouldn't down the road him changing his name lose that then?
But here's what I'm thinking. Okay, so he goes there, he starts making...
This is really... We're going really hypothetical.
We're going super hypothetical.
Because we're going on if this was actually an ongoing.
We're talking this is an ongoing.
All right.
Okay, so after the series, we start seeing that sign. Now, as things are going on, he's going to have that inner struggle where he's dealing with the fame that he's getting. He's dealing with the fact that he's a hero. Is he a hero? Is he a villain? There's still going to be that dancing back and forth. And one of the things that's going to start... The name Tattoo Man's going to start popping up. They're going to start talking more about him as being a hero, as being a good guy, and that's the one thing where it's going to start saying the man sold out. He's not true to himself.
He would go to Ink to go back to street level.
Exactly. It would be the Tattoo Man sell out.
You really thought this. That's why you totally had me through a trip on this one, because you really went far on this one thinking it through. All right, I apologize. I completely because the reason why I was going at you on that, I was totally like, to
be honest, I didn't.
What in the world is he talking about? Because I generally, when you throw things out here, I generally try to wrap my head around what you're saying to.
And I didn't explain it well.
No. It's actually it makes perfect sense to me right now. You're playing a what if this were to actually go to series. Yeah. So out of all of let me ask you a question. Out of all these. Is that the one you'd most like to see go to series?
Yes. Yeah, okay. and I'd love the Weasel. I think he's
great.
I
do too. I'm not talking about quality. Yeah. I'm talking about which one of these, because there's different. Some things can be just a phenomenal minis. Yeah. Like Final Crisis Aftermath run, I think, and I go on the record. I'll say that is my absolute favorite one right now. Not just because of Freddie. Yeah. I just really think that one is a phenomenal miniseries. But and I think that works as a mini. I don't necessarily want to see a Human Flame ongoing. I would like to see the character out of that spin out and do more in the DCU. Yeah. Tattoo Man's interesting though. Yeah, I could see him.
Yeah, see, Run is my favorite of these. But Tattoo Man, the character, I think there's so much room for growth, so much room for some really just meaty stories that you sink your teeth into, and you just like, whoa, that's a comic book I just read. Yeah. I think that he has that such potential in there. That's why I'm just thinking, 20 issues.
I honestly think this creative team
stuff
could keep it going.
Oh God, yeah. Now,
because I like what they're doing.
Yeah.
I will say I kind of feel the same way about the Super Young Team one. It all depends on where it goes.
Yeah, see, I'm
into it. I'm into the social commentary of it. I'm really into the fact, you talk about how it focuses on reality shows, your internet, YouTube, social networking. I love Twitterati. Those constant blurbs from him where it's clear that he's constantly blipping out there for his fans. It feels very today. I'm into it. So I'm very into that series. It depends on where that series goes, but I could see that series remaining. If it were to go into an ongoing series, I could see that one remaining interesting because of the social commentary in it. So that could be an interesting one in a different way.
Yeah,
I would like to see that one as well, possibly, or as a series of minis.
See, I
kind of like what's not saying that we have a different mini every month, but maybe once a year another Super Young Team mini.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I could actually go for that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think I'd want to. I don't know if I'd want to see them as an ongoing, because part of the problem when you deal...
I want an anthology type, because, see, a lot of this stuff, I got to be honest with you, my ultimate solution for a lot of this stuff would be
an anthology.
Yeah, to have DC Comics Presents or something like that back, that type of anthology series going again, where... I'm thinking of the Marvel Comics one that they did, but, DC did it with Action Comics for a while, and... to me, anthologies work, and unfortunately sales numbers don't always support this. I think that's why the co-features are what's being done right now. But I would love to see a straight anthology for characters that really aren't even making it into co-features. That just, I think, Tattooed Man, and maybe having a main story with, a top-tiered character, and then, 3 or 4. I'd like to see it be an oversized book with 3 or 4 other stories going on, and not necessarily going on at the same time. It's like what I mean is Tattooed Man would start on week 1, and then 3 weeks later you get this other book, and I like when they're kind of in different places in storytelling, where one's in the beginning, one's in the middle, and one's at the end, because it kind of
it keeps the flow constant.
Yeah, and the way you do that is
you
have different links to the stories and that type of thing. But I was a big fan of those kind of books, and I don't know. I honestly, the sad part is I don't know if it would survive nowadays, but I would love to see that again, because these are great examples of characters that I think could go on in those type of environments. Maybe if these co-features are successful, they might try out an anthology title. I don't know.
That'd be cool.
I mean, I think they already are pretty successful, because I think the sales numbers have been pretty high so far. But of those books, they've been successful by me. I like this. So I'm hoping to see more with these. Now, let me ask you a question. Do you consider these? I mean, obviously, we tend to get this stuff at the start because we're going to talk about them on the show on some level. Do you consider this worthwhile? Is there any of these you would drop? If we weren't doing the show.
If we weren't doing the show, I don't think I would drop any of them.
I don't either.
I am getting enjoyment out of them.
I am too.
And I do admit that part of the reason I ordered all 4 of them, was right, because I knew we'd talk about them on the show.
Sure.
And with Ink and with Run, I'm really, really chomping at the bit. Escape and Super Young, and Dance. I'm not, going raw, but I'm enjoying the read, and as we said with Escape, it's that whole mystery developing that's growing, and it's drawing me in, getting me thinking. But as I said, I have to be in the right mindset to read it. If I read it in the wrong mindset, I'll be like, oh, what's this?
Outside of the show, I would have bought all these.
Yeah.
Tattooed Man, I was interested enough from Final Crisis, especially a lot of our discussions about Final Crisis. I would have picked that up anyway. Super Young Team, I was curious enough about that I would have picked this one up for that.
Yeah.
Escape, I love Nemesis. He's our Cleveland superhero. We got to support our Sir Thomas of Cleveland. I like Nemesis a lot, so I would have followed it for that reason. It's funny. Run is the one I would have grabbed. And honestly, without a doubt, I would have grabbed it, but I would have grabbed it because of the name value of the creators versus the character. I stick around now because they sold me on them. So I thought we should talk about these, and I'm glad we had this segment to talk about them because we haven't really had a lot of chance to delve. We talked casually about Run in a Speeding Bullets segment with issue 1, but we talked about lamb chop and the restaurant sequence. I didn't go too much into that right now because of the fact that you and I had talked about it previously, but these are books that I'm glad we had an opportunity to chat about.
He is called Hawkman. His gauntlets possess awesome powers.
Jim, our sponsors for this episode are DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Remember to be checking out DCBService.com this week for the brand new listings. Check out those specials for anywhere from 40 to 75% off. They have everything from independent, DC, Marvel, Independence, you name it. They're all there. And I love sorting through the site and just trying to pick out a pull list.
Yeah, going through what you're going to do. This one, I want
this. It's insane now with how much great comic product that's out there trying to make a budget for comics, which is a good problem to have because it'd be a lot worse trying to say, geez, I want to buy 5 books and I can't find 5 good ones. Now it's like it's hard to make, just a 25-book pull list. But I mean, that's a nice problem to have. It's nice that comic quality is so high. And thank you, DCBService.com, for your discounts because it really enables us to be able to purchase more, which is really great. So thank you for supporting us. InStockTrades.com. This is it. Make sure if you haven't picked up for tomorrow to join us because we've already recorded it and it's going to be in 1 week. The Absolute Edition, regularly $75, 47% off, only $39.75. The trade paperbacks, Volume 1 and Volume 2, $14.99, 47% off, only $7.94. Less than a week left to order those because we are going to partway through the next 7 days. It's going to be switching over to Preacher as the discounted, and that will be announcing that on the next show that's going to be airing after that discount's been on there. And I'll put it on the website as soon as it's available, but 47% off on some Preacher material because we're doing the first 12 issues that are in that hardcover next for Preacher. So if you haven't gotten that yet, jump by InStockTrades.com. Remember, $50 or more, free shipping, InStockTrades.com. Jim, I want to remind everyone about the Hero Initiative. I didn't do this in the beginning of the episode, and I'd like to keep supporting Hero Initiative. It's heroinitiative.org. And there's a handy-dandy link on RagingBullets.com, but HeroInitiative.org really explains what this is. It's a chance for all of us to give something back to the creators that have laid the foundations for this industry that, need help, financial support, aid for medical issues, whatever. This is a great chance for us to give something back. I always tell people, at least the cost of a comic. We can all, say, one comic, donate that. And if we're all doing that, people listen, encourage your friends to do it that read comics. Maybe they don't listen to podcasts, encourage them to donate to Hero Initiative because it is a chance to give something back to something we all believe in. And Hero Initiative is very, very cool. I like to support it regularly myself. So that's heroinitiative.org. Jim, enjoy your vacation, buddy. Very, very cool. 170 episodes for us, and you're going away.
I need a break.
Do you need a break?
Give me a break. Give me a break. Okay.
As I said at the start of this, we're going to be back on Monday with a brand new show for you guys. That one's going to be focused on, like I said, the San Diego Comic-Con, some commentary on the Watchmen Blu-ray Disc Collector's Edition, and talking a little bit about the motion comics as well. But most of the focus is on San Diego Comic-Con with guests Ian Levinstein and Maddie Stiegel from Life in the Gutter. So it's going to be some great stuff.
Bye.